Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Chef Sherman, and we have Dr. Eric Lopkin. Dr. Lopkin, I'm going to throw it out to you. A lot of things going on. I think in particular, I just want you to touch on the McCabe interview on 60 Minutes real quick. Don't give it, too much of a discussion point. But for me, I found it a little troubling, which leads up to the next area we'd like to venture into in terms of the media totally overlooking the fact that he's really discussing a coup attempt. I mean, that's to say, basically based on nothing. So I'd like your input on that, please.
Yeah, he's trying to sell his book, and in the book, he talks about using the 25th Amendment and the discussions around that to get Trump out of office. Now, there have been a number of people who were in this conversation who dispute his version of events, but it really looks like the FBI wanted him out. Now, remember, previously, we've already seen two FBI agents sending texts back and forth saying, we're going to stop him. We're going to, So even before he won, the FBI had already shown their bias against him. And it looks like the FBI, which had been completely politicized under Obama,
oh God,
was actually trying a coup attempt.
And that doesn't shock people. I mean, even if you hate Trump, which is fine, that is troubling. A duly elected and basically very effective because they certainly put the handcuffs on, no pun intended, the handcuffs on Trump in terms of his agenda. I think he was only probably allowed to probably accomplish 60% of what he could have. It was always hanging over his head. It ruined his credibility internationally. It did huge damage to his administration. It was not unscathed.
Well, remember, under the Obama administration, the FBI had been politicized. The IRS had been politicized to go after
weaponized, yes, conservative organizations like the Tea Party.
The FBI was weaponized against the media, where they got the Associated Press records. All of these government agencies that are supposed to be nonpartisan were turned into weapons for Obama, and nobody said a word. So when
it was Obama, but
right.
Yes,
so now
got a free pass on everything.
When they continued that under Trump, and in this case against Trump, because Trump was certainly diametrically opposed to most of Obama's policies, nobody's blinking. It's just continuation as business as usual.
I find it troubling. I also find it troubling the weaponization, politicalization of the IRS and the FBI by Obama is scary. Speaking of scary, Bernie Sanders, I think he's older than I thought, 77. Again, didn't hold the job till he was 40, is now throwing his hat in the ring. I want your viewpoint on that, Dr. Lopkin, and your assessment of his chances.
Bernie, he's delusional. He's looking at this as, oh, well, now my beliefs are mainstream. The majority believe.
I remember that, yes.
He said this when, in the interview where he announced he was coming, and his beliefs are not only are they not mainstream, they are failed policies that other countries have gotten rid of or are getting rid of.
I have to interject on that one. I do believe your first premise. Do you think America, especially the millennials and younger, are smart enough? It seems like socialism is kind of sexy. Do they look at Venezuela? Do they look at the old Soviet Union? I'm not so sure, Dr. Lopkin.
I think the millennials are morons. I think they will believe these people when they say, we're going to give you free stuff.
Okay, now how did it happen? I know I have a feeling why. I want the learned doctor's opinion on why are millennials the way they are.
Honestly, I think it's because they grew up under the Obama administration.
And under bad economies.
It was a bad economy. Things were very tough. And Obama gave them somebody to blame, the upper class, and gave them the idea that they deserve free stuff just for existing.
Yes, and do you agree that Obama actually failed on many things, but he did accomplish his major objective, which was to fundamentally transform America. On that note, I believe he succeeded.
I don't think he's fundamentally transformed America. He has fundamentally transformed the Democratic Party. But he completely lost Middle America for the Democratic Party. So what he's actually done is created a massive chasm between the right and the left, or even now the center and the left, because they keep pulling further to the left.
Agreed with that. To some ways, he caused Hillary's defeat because of she had to run on a more of a leftist agenda. I think if she was more mainstream, that she usually was, you never know what she really believed, but in the past believed she might have won. That's neither here nor there. That is definitely food for thought, but the biggest food for thought is his chances of winning, Dr. Lopkin, the 77-year-old socialist.
Given the number of people that are running, I don't think he stands a chance. I think he did so well because he was running against Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was fundamentally unlikable. People did not want her in office. So it was easier when you had an either or, they went to Bernie. I don't think he's going to do so well with, what is it now, 10 candidates in the race?
And I also think he never had the hot spotlight on him. It was always a love fest. Hillary thought she was preordained, which he kind of was. He never really got asked tough questions. I think put to the microscope, the 77-year-old socialist doesn't hold up.
No, I mean, even in the last election, the New York Times, the gray lady of liberalism, was appalled at his lack of knowledge and his lack of ability.
Oh, no, he's a one-trick pony. They say rock and roll is 3 chords and a lot of energy. Well, he's 1 chord and maybe half of energy. Well, a lot of energy for 70-something years old. The top 1%, the top 1%. Yep. Oh, shut up already.
I don't think the media is going to be as kind to him this time because there are 10 candidates. They can all find their own person to back.
Yes, and also how, just in a theoretical sense, how would the great socialist hold up in a debate against Trump?
Oh, he'd fall apart like a house of cards. He does not have the knowledge to do a debate. When he debated Hillary, he did not do well, and they were lobbing softballs at him.
Yeah, no question about it. You also had some issues with the media. Maybe you can close on that, Dr. Lopkin.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about media bias and what they miss and what they choose to cover.
Well, they certainly missed the coup attempt, didn't they?
Well, they missed the coup attempt. They missed this week Donald Trump putting together an initiative to protect homosexuals in countries where homosexuality is illegal and to try to change the policies of those countries. But this week, any thought of them not really being biased, they threw out the window. When Laura Logan, a reporter for CBS, came out on a podcast and said, not only is the American media incredibly biased towards the liberal end, but so is the international media. And because she came out and said this, she was fired by CBS.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. And if it was if the roles were reversed and she was a liberal pundit, there'd be outrage. Speaking of fundamentally changing America, just flipping back a second, there is a news item in Connecticut that now the Waterbury School District, the Pledge of Allegiance is now voluntary.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, the Pledge of Allegiance was always voluntary. I mean, when we had the Pledge of Allegiance when I was in elementary school, my father was a Vietnam veteran and he died because of exposure to Agent Orange. And after that, I refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. I would just be there. And nobody ever said anything. Nobody, it was never being forced on people.
But do you think it's indicative of that we're moving towards a kind of a split with two Americas. I mean, the kneeling at the anthem, which doesn't really, but it shows that there's a big segment of especially the left side of things that truly just really don't like America.
No, that really does seem to be a focus of the far left, is to destroy America. They want these European policies, which those European countries have already gotten rid of. You know, there's been a lot of talk of a 70% tax bracket. Well, the president of France, not the current president, but the one just previous to him, ran on that notion. He wanted to tax the top percent. There's 70% taxes, and he won on that basis. When he implemented it, the policy fell apart because it's not sustainable, and they voted him out because it was ridiculous. But instead,
it is interesting that, and everywhere it's failed, but it looks like it scares me a bit, and I just want to kind of close on, is it scares me a bit because it seems like as the world, or much of the world, is moving away from socialism, it seems like it's kind of, like I said before, kind of sexy in America, especially with the millennials.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a vocal group of people who do not have any clue how economics work, what socialism really causes. I mean, the perfect example is what just went on in New York.
Oh, God, with Cortez, right?
With Cortez and Amazon. They don't understand that the $3 billion that everybody was tossing around was not being given to Amazon. It was a tax break, which meant when Amazon made the money and paid their taxes, they wouldn't have to pay that. They think that the $3 billion is still there, and now they can spend $3 billion. And it was a vocal minority. The majority of New Yorkers, the majority of New York politicians were in favor of the Amazon deal, but this wacko group managed to scuttle it.
Okay, do you think that's going to hurt her? And the second little flippant point is that we talked about her education or lack thereof, lack of knowledge. Do you know that she actually got a degree in economics from BU?
I know. That absolutely amazes me. I think it means that BU's accreditation needs to be reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, wow. So interesting, certainly an interesting week. Even though it's early, handicapping things for the 2020. How do you see things now, Dr. Lopkin?
At this point, I think Kamala is still the front runner. She can't beat Trump. She's already tripping over her own feet. But there's such a group of abject morons running. I honestly believe that the best thing that could happen to the Democratic Party is Howard Schultz running as an independent, because he would force the party to move back to the center. So its current direction is unsustainable. Yeah, I really hope he does run.
Well, Lopkin, another interesting week and another great edition of Carnivore Bites. We'll do it again next week.
See you then.
You've been listening to Carnivore Radio's podcast. You can catch us here every week. Carnivore Radio is part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can listen to the podcast at blogtalkradio.com/Xvadio. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can listen to us live every Friday at 4 o'clock on WESU 88.1 Middletown, Connecticut. You can also catch us online at WESUFM.org. We look forward to hearing from you, and see you next week.